She raised him like a son, loved him without expecting anything in return. But when his glamorous fiancée humiliated her in front of everyone, he said nothing. Evelyn, the quiet woman who had given her life to Nathaniel Blake, became the target of cruel insults in her own home. But just when it seemed she would walk away forever, something in Nathaniel finally changed. What did he do to make it right? And was it too late? This story will break your heart and heal it. Where are you watching from? Let us know below, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. In the quiet elegance of the Blake estate, nestled just beyond the hills of Westchester, the late afternoon light spilled through tall arched windows, casting a soft golden hue across the marble floors. Evelyn Carter stood near the fireplace, arranging a small vase of fresh hydrangeas. Her movements were graceful, practiced, but there was a subtle tremble in her fingers that betrayed her thoughts. Today wasn't just any return, it was his return. Nathaniel Blake, the boy she had raised like her own, was finally coming home after years of being consumed by the whirlwind of tech empires, media interviews, and investors' meetings. And he wasn't coming alone. Outside, a sleek black car pulled up to the estate's circular driveway. Evelyn caught sight of it through the sheer curtains. Her heart skipped, but she steadied herself, smoothing down the front of her navy dress. Her hair, silvered with age, was neatly pinned back. She didn't expect hugs. She didn't even expect thanks. But she had always hoped for a smile. That had never changed. The grand doors opened with a click, and in stepped Nathaniel Blake, tall, sharp-featured, every bit the man the world admired. He looked around with a mixture of nostalgia and pride. Beside him stood a woman equally striking, Chloe Winters, known in social circles for her elegance and icy charm. Her stilettos clicked authoritatively on the marble floor, and her designer coat clung to her frame like armor. Evelyn took a step forward, hands folded, and offered the warmest smile she could summon. "Nathaniel," she said gently. He turned, his face lighting up. "Evelyn," he greeted, walking toward her with open arms. "This is Chloe, my fiancée." Evelyn turned to the woman beside him, extending a hand. "Welcome, Chloe. I'm Evelyn Carter. I've been with Nathaniel's family since he was a baby." Chloe's eyes flitted over her from head to toe, a flicker of judgment barely concealed. Her painted lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So you're the nanny?" she asked. Evelyn's smile faltered for the briefest second. "More of a housekeeper now," she said softly. "But yes, I helped raise Nathaniel," Chloe scoffed. "Still here? That's sweet, or maybe just sad." A thick pause filled the room. Nathaniel gave a polite chuckle, brushing off the tension. "Come on, Chloe, that's enough." "I'm just saying," she shrugged, removing her coat and handing it to the butler without looking. "I didn't know we'd be sharing space with the help." From the nearby hallway, a soft clearing of the throat broke the awkwardness. Miriam Blake, Nathaniel's aunt, elegant and sharp-eyed, stepped in, her gaze moving swiftly between them. "Evelyn is not the help," Miriam said clearly. "She's family." Chloe blinked in surprise, but quickly disguised it with a smirk. "Of course," she said, drawing out the words. "That explains the reverence." Evelyn bowed her head slightly, her hands now clasped behind her back. She didn't respond. She never responded to cruelty. She'd learned a long time ago that some battles weren't fought with words. But deep inside, the sting nestled quietly. Nathaniel tried to change the subject. "Dinner should be ready. Let's go eat." The dining hall was aglow with candles and silverware, a table set for 12 with crystal glasses and fresh orchids. Everyone took their places. Evelyn quietly moved to the far end of the table, as she always had. As she sat, Lena, the youngest housemaid, leaned in and whispered, "Please, Mrs. Evelyn, don't let her get to you." Evelyn gave a faint smile, but Chloe wasn't finished. "She's eating with us?" she asked aloud, raising a perfectly arched brow. Nathaniel hesitated. "Yes," he said, though his voice wavered slightly. "Odd," Chloe muttered. "I thought staff had their own quarters." Evelyn said nothing. Her food sat untouched. Conversations murmured around her, but she felt like a shadow. Still present, yet slowly disappearing. Across the table, Miriam glanced at her nephew. Her gaze was sharp as glass, silently asking the question Evelyn never dared voice. "Are you going to let this continue?" But Nathaniel didn't meet her eyes. The engagement party was extravagant, even by Blake family standards. Gleaming chandeliers cast soft light over the crowded drawing room, where champagne flowed freely and waiters weaved expertly between the guests. Laughter and piano notes floated through the air as figures in tailored suits and glittering gowns mingled beneath golden ceilings. Evelyn Carter stood near the far wall, half hidden behind a vase of fresh lilies she'd arranged herself that morning. She wore the same navy dress, freshly pressed, her hair still pinned neatly. This night was not for her, and she knew it. She was there to ensure everything ran smoothly, not to be noticed. But some people notice, just to wound. From across the room, Chloe Winters reigned like a queen atop her throne. She sat on a velvet settee in the center of attention, surrounded by Nate's friends and business partners, their conversation flowing freely around her. Her laughter was sharp and musical, slicing through the room. When someone asked about the estate's interior and how elegantly old-fashioned it was, Chloe leaned forward with a smirk. "Oh, it's charming," she said, swirling the wine in her glass. "Though I'm still surprised some of the older fixtures haven't been retired yet." Someone chuckled politely. Nate's longtime friend Paul gave her a puzzled look. "What do you mean?" Chloe didn't hesitate. "You know, the decor, the staff, that old housekeeper lady." "What's her name again?" "Evelyn," Paul said curtly. Chloe nodded, then added with a knowing glance, "Still lurking around like a family heirloom no one has the heart to throw out." The group fell silent. Evelyn, just a few feet away, had heard every word. Her hands tightened around the tray she was carrying, but her face showed no reaction. Years of restraint had taught her not to flinch when people tried to diminish her. She simply turned and headed toward the bar to refill a glass, her spine straight, her steps steady. Later that evening, as the dining room was being prepared for the second round of champagne toasts, Nate joined Chloe at the table. Evelyn moved silently behind them, placing fresh linen napkins. She reached across to adjust a glass, and in one swift, deliberate motion, Chloe reached out, grabbed Evelyn's wrist, and accidentally tilted her wineglass forward. Red liquid spilled down Evelyn's front, blooming across her dress like a cruel flower. Gasps echoed through the room. Time seemed to freeze. "Oh no," Chloe exclaimed with exaggerated horror, releasing Evelyn's wrist as if she'd just noticed her own actions. "You should be more careful, Evelyn. That dress must be, what? A few decades old?" Evelyn stood motionless, her hands now stained with the wine she didn't drink, her breath caught but not trembling. She blinked once, her eyes meeting Chloe's, calm and unreadable. Nate sat frozen, his mouth parted as if to speak, but nothing came. Around them, guests looked back and forth between Evelyn and Chloe, unsure whether to say something or pretend it hadn't happened. Miriam rose from her seat, her expression taut. Before she could speak, Evelyn lifted a hand, touching Miriam's arm gently. "It's all right," she said softly, almost too soft to be heard. "I'll go change." Lena, who had seen everything from the far corner of the room, darted forward. "Mrs. Evelyn, let me help you." "No, child," Evelyn murmured. "Stay. Enjoy the evening." And with that, she left. Not in shame, not in panic, but with a grace that left the room painfully silent in her wake. The party resumed, but the atmosphere had changed. Chloe continued to laugh, albeit a bit too loudly, and guests tried to act as if nothing had happened. But beneath the surface, something had cracked. The cruelty had been too visible, too deliberate. In the hallway, Evelyn paused outside her quarters. Her hand hovered over the doorknob. For the first time in years, she let herself sigh, not from exhaustion, but from a deeper ache that had finally reached the surface. Inside the drawing room, Nate sat still, his hand wrapped around a glass he hadn't touched. Chloe leaned over to him, her voice a whisper. "You're quiet? Are you upset over that little accident?" He didn't answer, because deep down, even he knew, it had been no accident at all. The morning after the party dawned gray and heavy, the sky outside the Blake estate overcast as if reflecting the tension lingering inside. Evelyn moved quietly through the guest hallway, her steps deliberate, a folded cloth in her hands. She had already hand-washed the wine-stained dress the night before, scrubbing the fabric under cold water until her fingers numbed. Now, she merely needed to press it. She worked in silence, humming a tune only she remembered, a lullaby she once sang to a boy too afraid to sleep during thunderstorms. When she returned to her room to fetch the iron, she saw it. A small suitcase by the door, half-packed. She stood still, staring at it as if it belonged to someone else. Then she sat at the edge of her bed and closed her eyes. Perhaps it was time. She hadn't decided yet, but the thought had taken root, soft at first, then sharper. What was she clinging to, after all? A place that had long since stopped being hers? A boy who had become a man but couldn't find the courage to speak? The knock came gently, hesitant. Evelyn opened the door to find Nathaniel standing there, hands in his pockets, eyes ringed with shadows. "Evelyn," he said, his voice low, "can we talk?" She nodded once and stepped aside. He entered her room slowly, his eyes catching on the suitcase almost instantly. His stomach twisted. "You're leaving?" Evelyn didn't answer right away. She set the cloth down, then turned to face him. "I was thinking about it." "Why?" he asked, though his voice betrayed that he already knew. Her gaze was calm but piercing. "If this is still my home, Nathaniel, why does it no longer feel like it?" He sat across from her, resting his elbows on his knees. "I didn't mean for that to happen," he said. "Last night, I didn't know what to do." "Silence," she said quietly, "is a choice too." He flinched, because the truth in her words didn't need to be shouted. She wasn't angry. That was worse. She was disappointed. "I wanted to say something," he tried, desperate to explain. "But it all happened so fast." Evelyn's hands folded in her lap. "But you didn't." The room fell into stillness. From the doorway, Lena appeared suddenly, breathless, her cheeks flushed with emotion. "Mrs. Evelyn, don't leave," she said firmly. "Mr. Nathaniel, if she means anything to you, then do something, because if you don't, you'll lose her, and you'll deserve it." Her words landed with more weight than any of Evelyn's silence. After Lena left, Nathaniel looked up, eyes wide with pain. "Evelyn, I don't want you to go. You're my family." Her face softened but didn't bend. "Family protects each other." "I know," he whispered. "I failed you." She stood and walked to the window, watching the drizzle begin to fall against the glass. "This house used to feel warm," she murmured, "because you were in it, because you laughed here, because you let me sit with you when you were scared." He stood as well, slowly approaching her. I remember all of it." She looked at him then, really looked at him, not the man on magazine covers, not the millionaire with a perfect suit, but the boy who used to bring her dandelions from the garden and ask if she could stay by his side a little longer. "Then why didn't you speak?" she asked, her voice nearly a whisper. He had no answer. Only shame. She turned back to the window. "I've given all I have to this family. If it's time to go, I'll go without bitterness, but not without truth." Behind them, the rain picked up, tapping against the window in steady rhythm. Nathaniel reached out and touched her shoulder. "Please give me a chance to make it right." Evelyn didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her silence was no longer a sign of surrender, but a challenge. A chance for him to prove whether his words meant anything at all. As she walked away, Nathaniel remained still, feeling something shift inside him. For the first time, he understood. It wasn't Megan's cruelty that cut the deepest. It was his own silence, and that was something only he could undo. That evening, the mansion glowed once more. Lights strung across the garden, soft jazz playing from hidden speakers, guests arriving in sleek cars as if nothing had happened the night before. Chloe had planned another gathering, an impromptu apology soiree, though no one believed it was truly about making amends. Dressed in shimmering emerald silk, she glided through the drawing room like nothing was amiss. Her laugh just as sharp, her presence just as commanding. She greeted guests with ease, brushing aside questions about the prior incident with vague smiles and reassurances. "Just a misunderstanding," she cooed. "It's all been handled." But not everyone was convinced. From the back of the room, Lena watched with narrowed eyes. She stood beside Rachel, the longtime head butler, who held a tray of drinks but wasn't offering them. "She really thinks if she smiles enough, people will forget," Lena muttered. Rachel remained quiet, though her expression made it clear she agreed. They both scanned the room until their eyes landed on Nathaniel, standing at the far end, alone near the arched windows. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't even pretending. "Do you think he'll do anything?" Lena asked, her voice low. Rachel sighed. "He sees her now. The question is, does he have the courage to act?" Meanwhile, in a quiet corner, Evelyn adjusted the placement of a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Her dress was different tonight, plain and gray, still damp at the hem from earlier cleaning. She'd been asked, told, not to worry about the evening, but she couldn't stop herself. She had always taken care of this house, its people, its memories. Even if those memories had begun to turn bitter. From across the room, Chloe spotted her. Her eyes sparkled with something cold and calculating, and then, with deliberate steps and a wine glass in hand, she strolled over. "Oh my," she said, voice loud enough to draw attention. "Still here, Evelyn? I assumed you'd have packed your bags by now." Conversations around them faded into silence. Evelyn turned to her slowly, her expression calm but tired. "I go where I'm needed," she said simply. Chloe laughed, a sharp, gleeful sound. "How noble. But let's be honest, you're just a relic clinging to relevance." Without warning, she raised her glass and tossed the wine forward. Red liquid splashed across Evelyn's chest, soaking into the fabric like blood. The room gasped, someone dropped a fork, and time seemed to stop. Evelyn stood still, wine dripping from her collarbone, her arms unmoving. Her eyes met Chloe's. Not angry, not shocked, just sad. A sadness so deep it made the laughter around them hollow. Caroline leapt to her feet. "What did you do?" she shouted. Chloe shrugged, mock innocence etched on her perfect face. "It was just an accident. She's always underfoot." Nathaniel saw everything. His blood went cold. Something inside him snapped, not with rage, but with resolve. He pushed through the stunned crowd, his jaw set. "Get out," he said, voice firm and quiet. Chloe turned, blinking. "What?" "I said get out," he repeated, louder now. "This ends here." She laughed again, nervously this time. "You're serious? Over her?" Nathaniel didn't flinch. "Yes, over her, because she's family, and you're not." For a moment Chloe looked genuinely stunned. Then her features twisted with disbelief. "You can't do this to me. You love me." He shook his head. "No, I loved the person I thought you were." The room was silent, watching, breath held. "I'm not just asking you to leave this house," he added. "I'm canceling the engagement." Gasps echoed around them. Chloe's mouth fell open, rage building behind her eyes. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I already regret not doing it sooner," he said coldly. He turned away before she could respond, walking straight to Evelyn. Her hands were still soaked. She hadn't moved. He reached for them, gently cradling them in his. "I'm sorry," he said, voice breaking, "for every time I didn't speak, but I'm speaking now." She didn't reply immediately, but she didn't pull away. And that was enough. For now. Days passed, but the echoes of that night remained within the halls of the Blake estate. Chloe had tried to spin the narrative in her favor, but no one bought it. Miriam and Rachel had issued a firm public statement on behalf of the family, calling off the engagement and citing a profound misalignment of values. Chloe's influence evaporated almost overnight. Her phone calls went unanswered. Her business partners withdrew, and the headlines turned against her. Heiress humiliated. Chloe Winters disgraced after Blake family fallout. But none of it mattered to Evelyn. She had never cared for status or scandal. All she wanted was peace. One morning, as the autumn air grew crisp and the garden leaves turned amber, Evelyn stood outside trimming back the rose bushes. She worked quietly, her thoughts a soft hum beneath the chirping birds. Nathaniel walked toward her slowly, something tucked beneath his arm. She turned before he spoke, sensing him there. "Mrs. Evelyn," he said softly, "I have something for you." She dusted her gloves, tilting her head. "Another apology?" He smiled, sheepish but earnest. "No, something more." He held out a small velvet box. Evelyn hesitated, then took it with careful fingers and opened it. Inside lay a simple gold necklace, the pendant engraved with delicate cursive, "Forever Family." She stared at it, eyes blinking fast. "You remembered," she whispered. "I remember everything," Nathaniel said. "You once told me you'd never received a gift from someone you truly loved." Her voice caught. "That was so long ago." "Not to me." With trembling fingers she let him clasp the necklace around her neck. When it settled over her heart, she covered it with her hand, not to show it off, but to hold it close. Later that afternoon, he asked her to walk with him. He led her to a small car waiting by the fountain. "I want to show you something," he said, and she followed without question. They drove for over an hour, leaving behind the manicured lawns and stone pillars of the estate. When they finally pulled into a narrow gravel road flanked by wildflowers, Evelyn sat upright in her seat. "Nathaniel?" They came to a stop in front of a small, cream-colored cottage nestled among trees. A white porch wrapped around the front, a garden bed already filled with lavender and roses blooming wild. He stepped out and walked around to her door, offering his hand. "Come see." She followed him inside. The home was cozy. Wood floors, sunlit windows, soft blue curtains swaying with the breeze. On the wall hung a photo of young Nathaniel in her arms, one she'd nearly forgotten, and near the fireplace, her favorite rocking chair was stored. "I don't understand," she whispered. "It's yours," he said. "Everything. The house, the land. I bought it for you." She turned sharply. "Why would you?" "Because you gave me everything, and I never gave you anything in return." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't do it for a gift." "I know," he said gently, "but you deserve it anyway." Her hands trembled as she touched the wooden mantel. "It feels like home." He stepped closer. "It is home." In the weeks that followed, Evelyn slowly moved in, but she wasn't alone. The Blake estate made it a point to visit every Sunday, just as promised. Miriam would bring desserts, Lena would bring flowers, and Nathaniel would bring stories, sometimes work stress, sometimes nothing but jokes. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Nathaniel joined her in the garden. He knelt beside her, pulling weeds in silence. "You've changed," she said after a while. He glanced up. "I had to," she smiled. "You finally saw what matters." He nodded, wiping dirt from his hands. "I took too long, but you got there." That night, the Blake family gathered again. It wasn't a grand event, just a simple dinner in the cottage. After the meal, Nathaniel stood, raising a glass. "To the person who raised me, who stayed through every season of my life without asking for anything in return. I can't change the past, but I will spend every day honoring the woman who gave me a future." Evelyn didn't speak. Her eyes shimmered, her heart full. For the first time, she wasn't just the woman who stood in the background. She was where she had always belonged. Home. Family. Loved. This story reminds us of one of life's most powerful truths. Silence can hurt just as deeply as words. Evelyn gave her entire life to someone she loved, not for praise or reward, but out of genuine care. Yet when she needed even a whisper of protection, she was met with silence. It's a painful reality. How often we take people for granted, assuming they'll always be there. But love, no matter how unconditional, needs to be seen, respected, and returned. Nathaniel's journey is one many of us can relate to. He wasn't a bad person, just blind to how his inaction was slowly eroding the heart of the woman who had given him everything. It wasn't until he nearly lost Evelyn that he realized what truly mattered. In a world obsessed with wealth, status, and appearances, this story reminds us that the greatest riches are often found in the quiet loyalty of those who stand by us when no one else does. Don't wait until it's too late to tell someone how much they mean to you. Speak up when it matters. Choose love over pride. And always defend those who have defended you, even when the room is silent. Where are you tuning in from today? Let us know in the comments. We love seeing how far these stories travel. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next one. See you in the next video.